You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I am your host, JoAnn Crone. Hello, my Lolas. How are you today in this beautiful June summer? Oh my gosh, we have a great episode today. You know, one of my favorite book genres is thrillers. And today we are interviewing an author of an upcoming thriller, Beyond White Picket Fences. Her name is Christine Gunderson, but we go a lot deeper than just talking thrillers because we talk about why you feel trapped in motherhood right now, even when you're doing everything right. Like your kids are all in all the activities, you're showing up, you're keeping everything running, and yet it just feels like way too much. And the issue isn't that you're doing it wrong. It's that the expectations of actually providing for your kids and making sure that your kids have the best activities and are in the right sports and are gunning for that college scholarship, it just creates more pressure on you, more involvement, less time that you have to live your own life. So today in this episode, we're going to talk about why motherhood feels like a hamster wheel. What happens when mothers actually step off that hamster wheel and do less for their kids? And then how these motherhood expectations have changed since, say, like the 1960s. We really get into depth about that one, about what women were expected in then and what's expected of us now. And to do this, we're joined by Christine Gunderson. She is the author of the just released Behind White Picket Fences and her award-winning debut novel, Friends with Secrets, which won the Women's Fiction Writers Association Award for Best Debut Novel. Before becoming a novelist, she worked as a television anchor and reporter and later as a Capitol Hill aide. And she gives us the whole story about how she went from this fourth generation family farm in North Dakota to that career. She now lives in Washington, D.C. with her 3 kids, her husband, and their dog, Star. And her newest book dives into what happens when 3 moms step off the hamster wheel of modern parenting and uncover secrets that were never meant to surface. And as another kind of extra special thing about Christine is we are starting in our No Guilt Mom Inner Circle the Behind White Picket Fences book club. So if you're interested in reading this book and you're interested in like meeting a lot of cool women and forming friendships, which we learn is very important in this episode, come and join us in the inner circle during the month of July and the rest of this June. You could find the link right in the show notes here. Come and join. You can start your first month for $10. Get to chat with Christine at the end of reading the book and have her answer all of your questions. Talking to the author directly is so amazing. And I feel so delighted that I get to do that as part of my job right here. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. And Christine, it looks like it's just lovely weather over there in Washington, D.C.
Well, it's cool and it's a little chilly and a little rainy. So it's good writing weather, as I like to call it. Yes.
I'm always like curious with writers because I interview writers on the podcast and I ask these questions of all of them, like Jo Piazza, if you know who she is.
Yes, I love her books.
She's wonderful. She's so wonderful. And I know she has this writing rhythm where she has 2 young kids right now and she's like doing all the writing and she kind of like puts the writing in the morning. Is there like a specific writing rhythm that you go into?
I'm actually the same way. This is going to sound crazy, but I really like to get up at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and write before I wake my kids up for school.
Yeah.
Because there's something about it's quiet, it's dark. It's like my brain hasn't turned on and developed excuses not to write. And also, yes, no matter what else happens, someone, their contact lens falls out at school or they forget their football cleats.
Teenagers.
No matter what else happens, yes, I know I could get words in at least until 6:30. So that is, I'm 100% with her. Yes, writing in the morning to me is key.
You really never know what's going to happen with kids. Like it doesn't stop when they're teens. Just this morning, I was in a morning meeting and my son was getting ready to leave and he takes the bus, thankfully. Like 5 minutes from when he's supposed to be out the door to take the bus, I hear screaming from upstairs. And he's 12-year-old. He's a seventh grader. What happened was he is in FACS, which is a home ec-like class. They have a childcare unit and he made a sugar baby, which sugar babies like pack of sugar, like you put a onesie on it to make it look like a baby, and then like it has like a balloon head. The balloon popped. So
the baby's head popped.
The baby's head popped. And so he came down and he's like, I don't know how to tie a balloon. And so like I'm tying the balloon for him while I'm on meeting. But I mean, just all of those things, the little instances that kids provide, it's craziness.
Yes, it is. It is. Every day is an adventure in motherhood. That's definitely the truth.
Every day. Now, you grew up on a farm in North Dakota, and you got off that farm to go to college to become an anchor and a reporter and a Capitol Hill press secretary. What was your goal when you moved away and you started your career?
You know, it's kind of an odd story. When I was a senior in high school, my high school burned down. There
Wow.
was a faulty wiring in a popcorn popper, and on, I believe it was New Year's Eve, our school burned down. And I was nominated by the adults to go to the local TV station and make a public service announcement about all of the fundraising activities we were doing. And so I went down to the TV station and I sat down in front of the teleprompter and I started reading these words. And I was like, I want to do this every day for the rest of my life, because I was a theater kid and I was in speech and debate. So I decided that's what I wanted to do, was be a television anchor. So I went off to Moorhead State University in Moorhead, Minnesota, and was a TV reporter and anchor for 5 years. And then, even though I was a registered independent with no political affiliation, a candidate that I had covered as a reporter asked if I wanted to move out to Washington, D.C. and be a press secretary. And I'd never lived anywhere outside of North Dakota, South Dakota, or Minnesota in my life. So I was like, okay. And moved out here, met my husband, thought I'd stay here a year. And now it's almost 30 years later, and I'm still out here in the Washington, D.C. suburbs.
That's so funny how life just takes those turns, like against your best plans. It's like, nope, this is what I have planned for you.
Yeah, it's hard to predict, and it's interesting to think about, you know, if we had zigged left instead of zigging right and married someone else, we'd have different children. Like our whole life would be different. But it's a fascinating place to live. We have, within like 3 blocks of my house, there's like a Navy SEAL, there's a couple FBI agents. There's just really fascinating people here in the DC suburbs, people who come out here to work in the government. They want to serve, and they're fascinating people. So I love living out here.
I feel like you're living in an episode of Homeland where like you have like all those people around you. It's CIA. That'd be so interesting to me. Yes. No wonder you're a thriller author, Christine.
The CIA people tell you they work for the State Department, but yes, we all know who they're actually working for. So yes, there's a lot of that out here.
It's like code. I work for the State Department means I'm a spy. Okay. Yes. I got
State Department.
That.
Right.
So when you had kids, you shifted to staying home with them, correct? Did that come like right away? Did you know like, oh, when I have kids, I'm going to get out of this job? Or was that kind of a realization you made?
So that's sort of what my first book is about in some ways. I had a job where I was traveling all over the world with a cabinet secretary who I worked for. My husband worked for a different cabinet secretary at the State Department, actually, and was also traveling all over the world. And there was a day when we were both in Beijing, China, with our respective bosses, and we were going to try and have dinner together. And of course, that didn't happen. And that's when I realized that when we have this baby, someone is going to have to stay back in North America and take care of the baby. And I'm younger than my husband, and he was more advanced in his career. So we decided, okay, I'll stay home with this baby. And that was the single hardest thing I have ever done in my life. That transition from having a job, having coworkers that I loved, feeling like I knew what I was doing, like I was capable and confident and really good at my job, to staying home alone with a colicky baby, family nearby, All of my friends were still working. I had no friends. And so that transition was really hard. And I write about that in my first book, about basically about the fact that the people who march through motherhood with us and make it possible to survive motherhood, while our spouses are wonderful and important, it's female friends that sort of get us through the day. That book talks a lot about the importance of female friendship, and also honoring the choices that moms make, honoring the choice to stay home and honoring the choice to work, because both choices are completely valid and every mother does what makes sense for her family in the moment. But yeah, that was a hard transition, and that's actually why I started writing. I thought I was going to lose my sanity, so I started writing about it, and that is where the books came from.
I can totally relate to that because I had something similar. I worked in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles in television production, and the hours were really long. We hadn't had kids yet, but we had just gotten married, and I wasn't happy with where I was. Like, I thought there might be a career I might be more fulfilled in. I also knew that if I stayed in this career, I would rarely see my husband because he has a very high intensity job. And I would rarely see my kids because the confines of that work environment would keep me there at work. And so I decided to leave, become a teacher. I was a teacher for like 6 years. And then my second was born. I'm like, okay, this is unsustainable as well, because motherhood is just almost all consuming, and the expectations that moms are put under and the expectations of kids in general. It's hard to hold a full-time job where you don't have any flexibility and also take care of your family.
It's absurdly impossible to do
Yeah.
those things. I think that more is expected of mothers than any other group of people on the planet, because we are expected to civilize, teach, nurture an entire generation of people while simultaneously cooking healthy meals, keeping a clean house, and having a full-time job. And there's no way any human being can do all the things that women are expected to do.
But also, like, kids don't ever give you gold stars. They don't make you feel capable. They don't make you feel accomplished. And you need those things in your life too. Like why you started writing, why I started my own company, because I needed to feel that. I needed to feel that like achievement part of myself was going somewhere. Summer is almost here, and I have a whole list of things I want to do with my family. I just want to make sure our money is organized so I can say yes to the things that actually matter and not wonder where it went in September. That's the goal. Intentional spending, not anxious spending. That's where Monarch comes in. And here's what I need you to know right now. Monarch is the personal finance app that tracks everything: accounts, investments, savings goals, and spending. Get your first year of Monarch Core for half off, just $50 with promo code NOGUILT. And this is why I think it's so amazing. The AI weekly recap gives me a heads up on what's happening with my money before anything sneaks up on me. It flags spending spikes, net worth shifts, upcoming expenses. It's like a calm little check-in every week so nothing catches me off guard. And you can ask Monarch's AI assistant anything about your finances, anything. I literally asked it how much we spent on travel last summer, and it just told me. That kind of clarity is everything when you're planning ahead. Use code NOGUILT at monarch.com to get your first year of Monarch Core half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code NOGUILT. You know, when you're just balancing all the things and somewhere in the chaos, you're still trying to figure out if your kids are actually getting their nutritional needs met? Yes, that was me. And honestly, that's how I found First Day, and it just simplified everything. Here's what got me. They actually make different formulas for toddlers, kids, teens, and adults, so it's tailored to your stage of life. My 13-year-old son isn't getting the same thing I am at 44 because what he needs and what I need are genuinely not the same. Finally, a brand that gets that. We're talking a blend of 21 organic superfoods and 9 key vitamins. No artificial dyes, no added sugars, nothing unnecessary. They test for over 200 toxins and have the Clean Label Purity Award. So I'm not second guessing what I'm putting in my family's bodies. It's just 2 gummies a day, which honestly makes it so easy to stay consistent. Over 1 million families use First Day, and they have a 45-day money-back guarantee. It just takes the guesswork out of it completely. For a limited time only, our listeners are getting an insane deal. Use code NGM to get up to 57% off at firstday.com. That's up to 57% off and a free gift with code NGM at firstday.com. After you purchase, they will ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. You know what I just realized? I have trips on the calendar this summer, and I have been completely ignoring the most important question. What am I actually going to wear on the plane? Because here's the thing. I want to look cute on the plane. I don't want to be in like mismatched sweats, but I also want to feel like I am wrapped in a cloud for 5 hours. I want to be comfortable. It feels impossible, right? That is where Quince comes in. And honestly, I keep coming back to them because they make it so easy. Quince has these beautiful everyday pieces like 100% European linen pants, dresses, and tops with styles starting at just $32. And everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands because they work directly with ethical factories and skip the middleman markup entirely. You're paying for quality, not a logo. I just ordered the Cloud Comfort wide leg pants for my trip, and I am genuinely so excited about these. They look really cute, and they are way, way less than similar pants I've seen elsewhere. Comfy and adorable. That is a win I did not even know I needed. Elevate your summer wardrobe. Go to quince.com/NGM for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/NGM for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/NGM.
You know, one of the most wonderful parts of being an author and having these books come out is doing interviews with podcasters like you and meeting these incredible moms who are carving out careers, interesting, fascinating, fulfilling careers on the margins of motherhood. They are there for their kids, they are there for their families, but they are also on the margins in the carpool line during nap time, doing these amazing things, starting businesses, doing podcasts. And I absolutely love that we are finding ways to live up to these impossible, crazy standards in spite of ourselves. And motherhood's the motherhood of invention and creativity in some ways, I think.
It is. And like, I also have to acknowledge that compared to like the typical person, I do have a fair amount of privilege here in that I can kind of set out on this career because my husband's income brings in for the whole family. Whereas in like many families, you have to have two breadwinners to go out because it's impossible to make ends meet. So like I just feel for like all the moms who are doing those two things, like bringing money in and trying to be there for their kids. And like it is so hard. And this is why I love what you've done in your most recent book that just came out 2 days ago, guys. You all have to go get it. Behind White Picket Fences. You talk about being on this hamster wheel of motherhood. Like, is there a moment in your own life where you felt like that?
So my husband has always had a job where he's traveled a lot. And so, you know, there were certainly a lot of times when it felt like I was single parenting. I think it's just one of those weekends where there is simultaneously a Girl Scout meeting, a soccer game, a crew regatta, a fundraiser. There are 7 different things that you are expected to be at the same time in 7 different locations involving 5 different uniforms, and just the impossibility of doing that, the impossibility of having multiple children and multiple activities at the same time. No one can do that. And yeah, there were so many times when I found myself praying for rain. Dear God, please, please let it rain this
So I
weekend.
don't have to do this.
All the sports are canceled, please.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, a lot of us feel that way. That wouldn't it be nice if there was just a torrential rain and we could all just stay home in our pajamas? You know, it started to make me think, well, what would happen if we decided to just stay home in our pajamas? What would happen if we just decided we're not going to do that anymore? What would happen? And that sort of created the premise of the book.
It's like how COVID was so wonderful for some of us. Like there was like, of course, a horrible downside to COVID, but there was this little upside where all of the activities were canceled and there was no pressure and no expectations. And that part of it, like, honestly, I kind of miss about that time.
I think too, you mentioned expectations, and I think that's such a great point, is that I think that The reason that we all keep these insane schedules and our kids are in all these activities is because we feel like we are bad mothers if we are not giving them every possible opportunity. So if our child on a Thursday afternoon says they like to sing, then oh my gosh, we are obligated to sign them up for voice lessons. Or if, we notice in the backyard that they're out there throwing the football, oh my gosh, we need to sign them up for flag football. Like we feel that we are denying them if we are not signing them up for all these activities, driving them around to all of these different things, expanding their interests, giving them an opportunity to develop these interests. And I think it's this fear of being a bad mother that sometimes drives us to do all of these crazy things that make us sort of miserable as mothers, and also, I would argue, make our kids kind of exhausted.
They do. And I think some of the expectations comes from media. I get so mad at these instances. For instance, on Dancing with the Stars, a few years ago, Johnny Weir, the ice skater, thanked his mom for selflessly taking him to ice skating practice every morning at 5 a.m. And I was like, oh, but you no one can be expected to do those things. And that's not what makes a good parent, to totally sacrifice yourself so your kid gets to pursue their interests. And I just think that this is perpetuated everywhere, Christine.
You are so right. I remember watching the Olympics this winter, and you saw these figure skaters, and you saw the one adorable couple and their moms. They're married now, but they're figure skating partners, and their moms were also friends. And you just know those moms had spent decades sitting in this freezing cold arena watching them skate. And I wondered, do the moms have any hobbies? Do the moms have any friends outside of each other in the figure skating world? Well, I admire that sacrifice so much. I also feel like it's an incredibly high bar for the rest of us to meet. And I also think, too, that a lot of this is driven by fear. We don't know.
It is.
We don't know what kind of a future we're sending our kids into. Should they go to college, or should they become electricians? Should they... We just don't know where the world is going. There's so much change right now. And I feel like because we don't know what to prepare them for, we're like, okay, I'll prepare them for everything. They'll be athletes and Broadway stars and figure skaters, and they'll learn how to code and they'll learn how to not code. And I'll prepare them for everything because I have no idea what's coming down the pike. And so I feel like a lot of this is also driven by fear.
Yeah, there is a lot of fear. And I asked myself the question, has this fear existed throughout time and throughout change? Because I know there's so much fear coming with AI. And I look back and I'm like, but there has been constant change throughout our history. I mean, there was a lot of fear about the printing press coming out and books being widely available. There was a lot of fear about radio and television warping young minds. And it's one thing after another that is then put on top of, I feel like, women to then prepare the kids for this unknowable future where we have no idea what's going to happen. And so we try to pack everything in, and it's unsustainable for us.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. If the robots are coming, well, then how do we prepare our kids for the robots coming? But I do feel like, looking back on my own childhood, I don't feel like there was that kind of fear and pressure when I was growing up. It was kind of like, well, you can go off to college and then you can get a job. It was just sort of assumed that those things were, there was an established path to some sort of success. Mm-hmm. Everyone knew what the markers were on the path. Everyone knew how to get on the path. And it was sort of assumed that if you did these 5 or 6 things right in the right order, everything was going to be okay. And I feel like we no longer really know how to get on the path. Where's the path leading? What are the things you have to do when you're on the path? I feel like that has sort of become a little bit muddled. And I feel like that's scary for a lot of us. I know it's scary for me as a mom. I've got kids I'm sending off, to college. Well, what should they major in? I don't know. I don't know what to tell them. And I feel like my parents knew what to tell me.
Expedia and Visit Scotland invite you to come step into centuries of history that await in Scotland. Castles steeped in legend walk along cobblestone streets. Come share the warmth of stories passed down through generations. This is a place with a past that is fully present today and all yours to explore. Plan your Scottish escape today at expedia.com/Visit Scotland.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The empty seat. Who was actually just that, an empty chair in your office because you couldn't find someone to fill it. So it just sat there costing you money with all its fancy ergonomic features. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can make it easy to fill that seat with the right candidate, with nearly 60% of businesses finding someone to interview in the first week alone. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Right. Right. It's interesting when we do send kids off to college because we were talking before, we both have high school seniors. Yours is like the second to go away to college. And the thing I'm thinking about is I always go back to like my own college experience. I was so scared about getting a job after college. And I was thinking, what major can I major in that will get me a job? And what happened after college was it didn't even matter my major. It didn't matter my major. In fact, it mattered more like getting into like, I worked in the entertainment industry and I was at an agency. But what happened is that this agency prioritized hiring assistants who went to Ivy Leagues and colleges that like the agents went to. And I went to Arizona State University. I was not allowed to become an assistant right away. I got in through the mailroom. And that's how I worked my way up. But like, just this wondering of, okay, we don't know what's going to happen. There is no way to possibly prepare. So going into things with that is almost a permission to opt out of the system we're in now. And in your book, your main characters opt out of the system and they stop all the activities and they homeschool their kids. So what were you seeing in your life that gave you the idea for that?
You know, one of my kids has ADD and dyslexia. And so that is something that has made school a struggle for many, many years. I've also never been any good at math. And so the years of being expected to help my children with math were completely and utterly terrifying. And then they changed math and made it new math. And I'm like, I couldn't even do old math. And so now it's new math. So it's so many points over the course of raising my own kids. I was like, what if we could just not do this? What if I just taught them at home? What if we could just drop out? And so in some ways, this book was a little bit of a fantasy or a wish fulfillment for me, just sort of taking that wish that I sometimes had and drawing it out into a logical conclusion and seeing where that went. And this came about my literary agent and I were throwing some ideas back and forth and talking about the busyness and everyone running around. And we're like, yeah, wouldn't it be great just to drop out? And that's sort of where this came from. And I know I've had this conversation with my friends over the years too. Friends who, like you, actually had been teachers, who actually, I would have been utterly unqualified to drop out, but they actually had been teachers. And so sort of it was a wish fulfillment. And so, well, what would happen if? I think every story starts with what would happen if? What would happen if we dropped out? And that's what happens next in this book.
I love that because like exploring that is so fun. But I mean, this is a thriller. And first of all, I have to say thrillers are my favorite genre in the entire world, Christine. Like I read them like back to back, finish them in a day. That's how much I love them. And in this thriller, one of your characters, Kirsten, finds these diaries from a newlywed from like 1965. And without giving away too much, like how does this play into unraveling the secrets of the neighborhood and how like your three main characters just kind of like dropped out of the expectations of the system?
So these three moms who don't know each other very well at the beginning of the book become friends, decide to drop out of everything for a year and do this experiment. And they live on this very idyllic looking cul-de-sac. In the process of doing this, they find a diary from 1965 and they discover that perhaps this cul-de-sac that they have been living on is not as idyllic as they think. And I also wanted to compare and contrast motherhood today with motherhood in the past, because I know I tend to think things were maybe better, easier in the past. And in the course of
Right.
reading through this diary and uncovering some of these secrets, they realize that, maybe life wasn't actually better for women in the past. And I really wanted to compare and contrast that. And the diaries really allow us to sort of dive deep into what life was like for women, especially women who perhaps, I don't want to give anything away, but women who have some challenges in their life. And
Right.
so that's what we dig into with this Mr. and this thriller at the heart of this book about motherhood.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, in the course of your research about like motherhood in the past, what were some of the big differences?
I had a delightful lunch one day with 5 women who were in their 80s, and they invited me over, gave me lunch, and then talked about what it was like to be a professional woman and a mother in 1965. It was incredibly eye-opening. Women, you couldn't get a credit card. Women
Right.
couldn't apply for a lease on an apartment. You had to have a man co-sign for you. Women who, when they got married, if they had a country club membership, the country club membership then sort of transferred over to their husband. And then also just the women at work dealing with just blatant sexual harassment, which no one was going to do anything about. And they spent their days fighting off men in the copy room, but also trying to fight them off in a way that also would not get them fired. And so the things that these women had to navigate and endure and put up with was shocking to me, because I don't think of 1965 as being that long ago,
Yeah.
but life was very different for women. And then the expectations, because if you were a stay-at-home mom, which so many women were back then, there was a big stigma with divorce. And so if you were in an unhappy marriage, there was a real social cost for leaving that marriage. You also were not able to, women didn't have PhDs and masters and MBAs back then. So then if you leave your husband, well, how are you going to support your family? Because the only job you can be a teacher, you can be a secretary, or you can be a nurse. And that's pretty much it. And so it was also really eye-opening just to have these women remind me of the very limited career options that were available to women in 1965. And then the expectations, you were expected to be Betty Crocker. You had to, wax the linoleum, and you had to wash the curtains, and you had to bake everything from scratch. I mean, I think most of us would last about 2.5 hours as a 1965 housewife. I know I would. There's no way I could ever have lived up to the standards that these women were expected to live up to. And so the research that I did for this book was really eye-opening. And I hope I've incorporated that into this book as well, to sort of give us all an idea of what our mothers and grandmothers went through and how that compares to what we experience today as women and as mothers.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like the homemaking expectations are no longer there. However, like the trad wives on like Instagram are trying to bring that back a little bit. However, the expectations have switched to childcare and child raising and making sure you're raising like the best child possible. And I just wonder, like, in 20, 30 years, how we're going to look back at like right now and how things may have changed about expectations for women about raising kids and having this pressure of travel sports, which I think is the stupidest thing ever. Like, all those things.
I think you make such a fantastic point about the expectations. Like, before, you were expected to have a perfectly clean house at all times. Now you're expected to have a National Merit Scholar who is also the star of their travel baseball team. And so you're
I know.
100%
Yeah.
right. It's gone from expectations for your house to expectations for your kids. And yes, I interviewed a lot of moms who are in travel sports for this, because I really wanted to just show the impact on families. This new thing that we have called travel sports. We never had this, when we were young, and now suddenly everyone is playing a travel sport. And it's not enough to just pick up your bat and walk down the street and play the other kids in the neighborhood. Now there are hotel rooms and sometimes flights and cross-country journeys in your minivan involved. And if you aren't willing to do this, if you aren't willing to spend the money and spend the time, well, then you're a bad parent, because you're not supporting your child and helping them to be all that they can be. And so it's a toxic mixture of guilt and exhaustion And that's something certainly new in the parenting mix that the mothers in 1965 didn't have to put up with.
Yeah. And also, if you don't participate in the travel stuff, your kids don't get the friendships and connections that were normally just regularly available. Because another pressure on parents is that kids almost have to specialize in a sport to even make their school team. And that is just crazy. I mean, my son recently tried to try out for flag football at his middle school. He's a 7th grader. There were 100 boys trying out for like 20 positions. And most of those boys had played club football or club flag football. And of course, all of those players were the ones who got picked for the school team. So now it's like, where do kids even go to learn these things? And as a parent, you almost have to step in and make sure that they get the necessary skills to even qualify for a school sport, which is crazy.
That is such a great point in that, yes, we all want our kids to go off to high school and be able to play on the high school soccer team and have friendships and things. But yes, it's the level now of play has become so much higher because of these travel sports. So if you want your child to play soccer in high school, you have to start them when they're 4 years old, which is insane, which is insane.
It's insane. Which kid knows to like soccer at 4 years old?
Yeah.
No one. No one.
Yeah.
It is insane. Sounds like expectations, they haven't really reduced any. They've kind of just switched from homemaking to this childcare arena.
I think 100%. Again, I think this is driven by that fear, right? I think it's also driven a little bit by the dramatically increasing cost of college. I think a lot of parents at some point looked at how expensive college is and said, but if my kid can get a scholarship, that's going to make college more affordable. So it's okay to be spending enormous amounts of money on X, Y, or Z travel sport if this then results in a college scholarship. So I think some of this is driven by the fears of how are we going to pay for college. And travel sports,
it's an ROI thing.
Exactly. And so I think it's all connected. But I think at the end, it is driven by fear of our kids getting left behind, fear of them not having any friends in high school because they're not on the teams because they didn't start in 4th grade or 2nd grade, fear of being left behind. I think that's what sort of drives us as mothers to try and do all the things.
Yeah. If there's one message from behind White Picket Fences that you want every overwhelmed mom to hear, what would it be?
You are a great mom. You are a great mom. And one of the messages of White Picket Fences in my first book too is the importance of female friendship, that we have to have a community to survive this experience. And our kids need a community too, that we have to have other moms to go through this stuff with, and that it is so much easier to go through this if we have other families and other moms beside us as we walk down this road. And in Behind White Picket Fences, it's 3 moms who are banding together to try this experiment together. And in the process, they learn a lot of things, but they also walk out of this with a much stronger community than what they started with. And I feel like we cannot do this alone. And when we live in an era where so many people don't live in the place where they grew up, so many of us end up moving off somewhere for a job or a career, and it can be harder to find that community. But I think that's the secret sauce. You've got to have people walking beside you in the trenches, or you cannot do this alone.
I think that is an excellent message. Find your mom group to support you, maintain those connections, work towards those connections, because they're the ones that will ultimately sustain you throughout all the craziness and all the fear.
Yeah. It's interesting. I have some moms who I've known since my kids were in kindergarten. And, now we're texting about, college dorms. And it's really wonderful to see the people who, you were talking about, well, which box of crayons is it? Is it the 24 or the 48 for the kindergarten supply list? And now, all these years later, we're talking about dorm supplies. And, the people you meet when your kids start kindergarten really will continue to be there with you, some of them hopefully all the way to the end once those kids are flying the nest and heading off to college. And that's a beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah, so keep those female friendships and go pick up a copy of Christine's book, Behind White Picket Fences. It is out now. Thank you so much, Christine, for joining us today.
Thank you. This was an absolute pleasure.
And for everyone out there, remember, the best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you, and I'll talk with you later. If you'd like to support the show further, you can share episodes with your loved ones, leave a positive review, or follow us on social media at No Guilt Mom. You could also show your love by visiting our amazing podcast sponsors. We have a link in the show notes.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.